We're back to look at some wonderful German dolls, and one of the things about Connie Bailey's collection is she had a real love, as you've seen from the Mignonettes and the German Kestners that I showed you with them, that she had a real love for the early closed-mouth German dolls, and really not just copies of French ones, but dolls that had really distinctive expressions themselves. We have this tendency to always think that the German art character began 1910. And yes, it's true that that was called at the time an art character movement or an art movement in dolls. But there were expressive character dolls being made long before that. Connie had an eye for this because she looked for some of the early Simon and Halbigs that had that kind of very, very expressive look. Very like, you can see the family in them. They have a uniformity in terms, perhaps it's the way the painting was done or the type of bisque, but also just in the way the features are done. They all seem to have a sort of a family. And she was after getting almost every model she could find of them. And I put out 4 of the ones that, well, okay, I have to be honest, they're kind of my personal favorites of what she had. And so I want to show them to you. Our big girl standing in the back is from the 700 series. This would be an early series done by Simon and Halbig in the 1880 period. And this one is their model 719. And look at that really wonderful expression. Again, you cannot say this is just a pretty dolly-faced doll. It's an expressive child. In the front, we have a row of 3 of the dolls from her 900 series, which are also from mid-1880 period. And they're different models, but each is slightly different. And they're just brilliant. They have beautiful eyes, they have beautiful complexions, and each one, although they look like a family, has their own expression. And over here on the far right, we have the 929 series, very nice. This is interesting, the 929 and the 949, they made in many different ways. They made them closed mouth, they made them open mouth, they made them open mouth with square teeth. Lots of different varieties were done on these, and you as a collector, you can always be looking to try to get the different variations. Sometimes they made them as a socket head, sometimes as a shoulder head. They kind of knew they had a good face model going, and they wanted to get every bit out of it they could to reach all potential customers who would be looking for one. The one in the middle, this is a gorgeous doll. I love her look. She is the 920 model, and she is a shoulder head model. She's a shoulder head doll, very beautiful. And our little girl, little sister, younger sister over here on the right is the 905 model. Very rare model to find. And I think that this one, it would not surprise me at all if this was made to market to the French market. Not as a copy of a French doll, but actually to appeal to the French market, because in all of my years of going to France, and before France really opened up, and the dolls you found there were dolls that had tended to be sold there back in their day. Sometimes this doll would show up over and over again, which always led me to believe it was made for the French market, similar to the way the Armand Marseille 1895-94 model was made for the French market. I'm absolutely certain. At any rate, that's just a piece of trivia, may or may not be true. It's kind of my thinking of where I go. I'm going to just take a minute and spin her around because I want you to see we were just looking at hats. And look at the back of her hat. Is that beautiful? So here was a hat that you have beautiful work on the front. Then the back, however, it is woven, but it's plain. Remember I was talking about that the French dolls would have been really lavishly finished all the way around. This one just has some very simple pleats, but not the lavish flowers and ribbons and streamers like the French would have. Beautiful doll, however. Love these early Simon and Halbig dolls. They're wonderful. Now we have some great German characters from what is actually called the art character movement. And there are probably 25 or 30 of some fabulous pieces in this auction, but I just brought out a few that I wanted to see so you could see the widespread variety of them. This big girl here on my right is a really interesting example. She was made by Kuno and Otto Dressel. Shows up very seldom. She's marked COD on her back, and not only does she have a completely different look, a completely different type of bisque, the expression all is different, but the doll shows up very rarely and never in this large size. So this is a real find to have this COD Dressel character doll in this large size. Over on the far right is the doll known as Fanny. Fanny is very important because, let me just turn it so you can get different angles. I love the way that Connie has this doll costume. She's absolutely wonderful, and she's holding the little black-faced lamb, so kind of matches her coat. Fanny was made, we have other dolls that were the same thing. Fanny was made by Armand Marseille, one of their few art character dolls that they made. Cameron Reinhardt also made a very, very similar model, and that is their 115 model known as Philip, and Kathy Cruz. The first period Kathy Cruz, the Series 1 Kathy Cruz, this same model, all based on a sculpture that was done back in the 15 or 1600s by a famous Italian sculptor. And there kind of was a resurgence in interest in this art, and some of the early artists of the art character models drew upon their work, and that particular face must have really inspired some of them, because you find it here appearing in the dolls of 3 different doll makers, so very important. We have it's a wonderful choice, Gebruder Heubach's appearing in this auction, and I just brought out him because I love him. He has a sculpted bonnet. It's not a fabric bonnet, that's actually part of the sculpt of the doll. His little bonnet, and look at the embossed detail. It's not just like, like part of a mold and it's plain. It has all of its extra embossing detail, and once again, I keep pointing out to you, pay attention to how much detail had to go into the making of a doll. Extra steps, extra luxury details. These things, to me, point out what makes one doll more special than another. And the Gebruder Heubachs are truly expressive works of art, in my opinion. I'm going to move him over. He can go stand with the little Simon Halbig dolls, because I wanted to show you this doll. Very, very rare model. This is a Cameron Reinhardt 117X. I say X, marked on the back. We know the 117, the Mein Liebling, with a closed mouth, of which, by the way, there's 2 beautiful ones in this auction. We know the 117A, which has the open mouth. But this is the 117X, made with flirty eyes and made with like a flapper type of body, with the side hip jointing, so obviously designed to be more of like a modern child. This has the original wig, which would have been the bobbed wig from the 1920s. And although we have the head stuff for security, you can't see it, she does have flirty eyes. So very different, and very, very seldom will ever find the 117X. She's particularly pretty. And I wanted to show you this Kestner, even though we've looked at Kestners already, because I love this little boy. He's just a dandy, and he brought his stiff pup Molly along with him, and he has the painted teeth. And what does he look like? French dolls? What does he look like? Circle Dot Brew. Very, very similar look to that. Closed mouth, but with the painted teeth, which one always wants to find on the Circle Dot Brew. And finally, of these German dolls, I wanted to show you the 1448 model. Is she beautiful or not? Do you love her? What a face. So rare, so wonderful. And she sadly has some damage. I have to look and see how I described her damage. She has a re-glue at the back of the head with overpaint, and one line at the forehead above the left eye. The lines are visible only with light, but all of the features retain their original painting. So a piece at the back, broken and re-glue, and a faint, faint line at the front, visible with a light. You're not going to see this when it's in your collection. This is like a $10,000 to $12,000 doll. And we have it estimated, I think, at like in the range of $2,000. If you can buy this doll in that price range, this is a wonderful opportunity for you. I keep preaching to people, if the dolls do not have damage that distorts their look, that ruins the look that the original maker tried to achieve, and if it's not a fragile damage that you think if you even breathe on it, it's going to fall apart. If those 2 things are true, then take the opportunity to buy that doll Add it to your collection, because I will tell you from all of my years of experience, when I have been in the homes of collectors that have such a doll, they forget the minute after they bring it in the house, if they bought it at the right price, that it has damage to it. And here's the proof positive of this. Connie Bailey, with all of her beautiful dolls, this was one of her favorites. So do not overlook dolls with damage if you can buy them at the right price, and if they're very rare, so you're very likely not to find them another time. And now I want to share with you, let me see, I'm going to share with you some wonderful dolls from the Schoenhoek group that we have in this auction. Dolls and toys and circus, a lot of fun.